Hello students, I hope you are all fine and in good health. So let me continue with my discussion related with the chapter Indigo. I had discussed up to court arrest in my previous audio presentation. So in this audio presentation, I will move on with my discussion. So let's continue. Several days later, Gandhi received a written communication from the magistrate informing him that the lieutenant governor of the province had ordered the case to be dropped. So, several days later, when this peasant uprising movement had started under his leadership, he received a sort of a letter. Now, this letter he received from the lieutenant governor of the province, and it was written in the letter that the case related with the peasants, the sharecroppers, it should be immediately dropped. So I'm repeating this line. Uh, See, Gandhi received a written communication from the magistrate informing him that the lieutenant governor of the province had ordered the case to be dropped. Civil disobedience had triumphed, the first time in modern India. So no more cases were given against Gandhiji. So finally, it was a victory. It was a triumph. Actually, triumph is a term that is related with victory, dear students. So finally, when the lieutenant governor of the province had written that the entire case has to be dropped, it was a victory, or in other words, it can be said that it was a victory of the civil disobedience movement for the very first time in modern India. So, dear students, I'm moving on to the very next paragraph now. Gandhi and the lawyers now proceeded to conduct a far flung inquiry into the grievances of the farmers. Now, Gandhiji haven't stopped there. He went on doing a full fledged inquiry. Far flung inquiry means a well detailed, or rather to say, a full fledged inquiry now into the grievances of the farmers. So what are the problems the farmers actually faced, what sort of exploitation had been done on them. So he went on to do an active investigation, a thorough investigation regarding that. Depositions by about 10,000 peasants were written down and notes on other evidence were taken. Now, obviously, their plea, their request, their depositions, all those things were heard very, very carefully. Even signatures were also being taken. Notes and other documents were also collected as useful evidence. Documents were collected. The whole area throbbed with the activity of the investigators and the vehement protest of the landlords. Now, the whole area of Champaran, that area was filled up with protesters, with investigators, and obviously the landlords. They realized that things were going totally against their wishes, so they went on repeatedly to protest. But now it seems that the fish is out of water. Now it seems that there is no more the landlords can do on their own, because Gandhiji came now as a savior and he won't stop. One thing is very much clear to us, that he won't stop. Till the very end, he will fight it out to see whether he can actually bring some justice to the peasants. Now, dear students, I am moving on to the next paragraph. In June, Gandhi was summoned to Sir Edward Gate, the lieutenant governor. Before he went, he met leading associates and again laid detailed plans for civil disobedience if he should not return. Now, obviously, he was being summoned. Gandhiji was summoned by the lieutenant governor, Sir Edward Gate, for a confidential meeting. Now, before he went to attend that meeting, he laid out a strategy that if he is arrested, then what should be done? What should be the plan B, plan C, like this? What the other lawyers they should do if somehow he be he be arrested? Then how they should proceed with the entire situation related with the peasants? So he laid out a plan before he went to meet with Sir Edward Gate. Gandhi had 4 protected interviews with the lieutenant governor. Protected means very confidential. 4 meetings. There were practically 4 meetings with the Lieutenant Governor, who as a result appointed an official commission of inquiry into the indigo sharecropper situation. Now finally, at the end of the meeting, the Lieutenant Governor himself, uh, uh, decided that an inquiry commission must be set up to know more about the exploitation scenario related with the indigo sharecroppers. The commission consisted of landlords, government officials, and Gandhi as the sole representative of the peasants. Now, on one hand, a commission was set up, and on one hand, it was represented by the government officials, by the landlords. Now, on behalf of the peasants, Gandhiji was the only representative. Now, sole representative means, dear students, Gandhiji was the only representative. Gandhi remained in Champaran for an initial uninterrupted period of 7 months and then again for several shorter visits. The visit, undertaken casually on the entreaty of an unlettered peasant in the expectation that it would last a few days, occupied almost a year of Gandhi's life. Now, at the very beginning, he went there, obviously been requested a lot by Rajkumar Shukla, an illiterate sharecropper or a peasant, and he thought initially that it would be for a couple of days or maybe for a few days, but it turned out that he stayed in Champaran for an uninterrupted period, almost a year passed by. Now he haven't thought that one. And now later he found out that this particular Champaran episode, it had occupied a year of his life. Now, I am moving on to the next paragraph, dear students. The official inquiry assembled a crushing mountain of evidence against the big planters, and even they saw this, they agreed in principle to make refunds to the peasants. But how much must we pay? They asked Gandhi. So obviously the commission was set up, and a pile of evidence were put up against the injustice that were being done against the peasants. So finally, the landlords and the estate officials, they demanded that how much refund will we have to pay to the peasants. They thought he would demand repayment in full of the money which they had illegally and deceitfully extorted from the sharecroppers. Now, obviously, the officials and the landlords, they thought that Gandhiji would demand the full payment of the money that had been deceitfully, illegally been extorted or taken out from them. They thought about it, that Gandhiji would ask the full payment. He asked only 50%, but Gandhiji replied that 50%. There he seemed adamant. Adamant, dear students, the meaning of adamant is very stubborn. That is the meaning of adamant. Writes Reverend J.Z. Hodge, a British missionary in Champaran, who observed the entire episode at close range. Now, this particular 50% scenario, that he demanded a refund of 50%. So this incident was been witnessed from close quarters by a missionary, by a reverend missionary by the name of J.Z. Hodge. That when Gandhiji demanded 50% of refund, J.Z. Hodge was also present in the court to witness the entire thing from very close quarters. So according to his account, Gandhiji demanded 50% of the refund. Thinking probably that he would not give way, the representative of the planters offered to refund to the extent of 25%, and to his amazement, Mr. Gandhi took him at his word, thus breaking the deadlock. But finally, there was a bit of a dispute, there was a bit of a bargaining. Finally, from 50%, it came to 25% refund. And finally, Gandhiji agreed to that. Because ultimately one thing is very clear, money is not the main thing on which he was striving for. Actually, he wanted the landlords and the British officials to realize their mistake, the injustice that they did. So he wanted them to feel guilty from inside. Money is secondary. he wanted them to realize what mistake they did, the injustice that they did. He wanted them to realize that. And finally, the deadlock was been broken. So there was no more deadlock when Gandhiji finally agreed to a 25% refund that will be given to the sharecroppers. This settlement was adopted unanimously, that is universally we can say, by the commission. Gandhiji explained that the amount of the refund was less important. The one that I told right now, dear students, the money was less significant. The money was less important than the fact that the landlords had been obliged to surrender part of the money and with it part of their prestige. The important thing is that he wanted them to realize what mistake they did. He wanted them to realize the injustice that they did. So that was Gandhiji's main intention. Therefore, as far as the peasants were concerned, the planters had behaved as lords above the law. Now the peasant saw that he had rights and defenders. He learned courage. Now previously, this activity would have went unlawfully with peasants. They had no backbone previously and they could not have fought previously. But now, in the form of an active leader like Gandhiji, they learned one important thing. And that is the most powerful thing they learned. And what is that thing, dear students? They learned courage, because it was the target of Gandhiji to free the minds of the peasants from fear, free from fear. That was his main target. So ultimately he succeeded in that. So it was ultimately a triumph from his perspective, because it was a triumph of his own ideology, because the peasants, they learned one thing, they learned courage. Now they won't back down from this. Later, if some problem happens also, still they will fight against it, because they have learned courage. So dear students, I stop in my audio lecture here in this particular line. In my next audio lecture, I will continue from the next paragraph. I hope you will listen to this audio presentation, dear students. And if there is any doubt, any confusion, do let me know. Thank you, students. Thank you all.